You're listening to Overhead Story Channel. Enjoy.
I never thought my marriage would start to unravel over something as small as a message preview on a lock screen. But it did. It was one of those cold spring mornings in Masonville, Ohio, the kind that tries to pretend winter's over but still carries frost on the grass. I'd gotten up early to load up the truck with tools for a job out near the county line. I run a small contracting business, just me and my buddy Marcus most days. That morning, though, it was just me. Jenna had borrowed the truck the day before to pick up some mulch and planters for her mom's garden. She usually took her own car, but it was in the shop again, and she hated the smell of my truck, said it always smelled like lumber and motor oil. I joked that it smelled like work. She rolled her eyes. I opened the passenger door to toss in a power drill and coiled extension cord. That's when I saw it, her phone. Just sitting there, face down on the seat like it had been forgotten. The screen lit up as I leaned across to grab a measuring tape from the glove box. And then the moment that cracked something inside me. A text preview. Caleb's speech balloon. Last night was perfect. I keep thinking about you. My hand froze mid-reach. Just for a second. Maybe two. Long enough for my pulse to spike and my thoughts to splinter. I didn't unlock it. Didn't pick it up. I just stared at it like it was something radioactive. I didn't recognize the name. Caleb. No last name, no picture, just a message that made my stomach knot up in ways I didn't know were possible. Jenna didn't have a brother named Caleb. Or a cousin. At least, not one I'd ever heard her talk about. I told myself, honestly, tried to believe it could be innocent. Maybe a friend from work. Maybe a joke. Maybe something I didn't understand out of context. But deep down I knew. There's a difference between, hey, that was fun, and last night was perfect. I keep thinking about you. It wasn't the kind of message you send someone's wife unless you're thinking about her in ways you shouldn't. I backed away from the truck, shut the door a little too hard, and stood there for a second listening to the morning birds and my own heartbeat trying to hammer its way out of my chest. Then I climbed in, started the engine, and drove to the job site. I didn't say anything to Marcus when I got there. I don't think I said much of anything all morning. Just kept my head down and worked like a man trying to bury a thought 6 feet under. Later that day, when I got home, Jenna was in the kitchen making tea like it was any other afternoon. Calm. Casual. She had her phone in her hand again, flipping through Pinterest or whatever it is she scrolls through when she's bored. I waited until after dinner to bring it up. I tried to be subtle, give her a chance to explain without cornering her. Hey, I said, you left your phone in the truck this morning. Got a text from someone named Caleb. Sounded kinda. I don't know, a little personal. Her reaction was immediate and not in a good way. She didn't laugh. She didn't make a face like, oh, Caleb? That dummy? She froze. Just for a beat? Like a buffering screen in real life. Then she blinked, turned her head slightly, and said, it's just a joke. He's a friend. We were messing around like teasing. I raised an eyebrow. Messing around? Not like that, she snapped. Ethan, seriously, don't turn this into something it's not. I didn't say anything, I replied, trying to keep my tone even. Just seemed like a weird message. You're reading too much into it, she said. Her voice had changed sharper now, colder. It was a joke. Jesus. She picked up her mug and walked out of the room without looking back, leaving the smell of peppermint tea and something colder lingering behind. I stood there by the sink, wondering why the hell I felt like I was the one who'd done something wrong. That's the thing about suspicion, it doesn't show up with fanfare. It creeps in. Quiet. Small. A shadow in the corner of your vision. One day, everything seems normal. The next, you're standing in your own kitchen, questioning if your wife is actually who you think she is. I didn't sleep much that night. Jenna fell asleep before me, turned away on her side of the bed. I stared at the ceiling, listening to the rhythm of her breathing, wondering if Caleb was thinking about her too. The next morning, I watched her a little more closely than usual. The way she texted with her screen tilted ever so slightly. The way her smile looked rehearsed. The way she said, I love you before leaving for work, not like she meant it, but like she was checking it off a list. I told myself I needed more to go on. I wasn't gonna be the guy, the paranoid husband who sees ghosts in every corner. But something was off. Off enough that the message stuck in my mind like a splinter I couldn't stop picking at. And the worst part? She never mentioned it again. Never tried to explain to reassure me. She just treated it like a moment that didn't happen. But I remembered. I remembered every word. Last night was perfect. I keep thinking about you. I couldn't help it. I started looking back. Thinking about things that didn't sit right anymore. The way she'd taken a shower late at night last week after coming home from a long shift with makeup still perfect and her skin faintly smelling of something floral and expensive, not her usual scent. I asked her about it then too. She just said she got drinks with coworkers and shrugged like I was weird for noticing. The more I replayed moments like that, the more I realized how often I'd talked myself out of concern. How often I gave her the benefit of the doubt even when something didn't feel right. I used to be proud of how much I trusted her. Now that same trust felt like the setup to a bad joke. One where I was the punchline. That night, I stood in the hallway just outside the bedroom door, listening as she laughed softly at something on her phone. Probably scrolling through reels or chatting with someone. Maybe him. I didn't know what was worse, what I suspected or what I might confirm if I pushed harder. I went downstairs, poured myself a glass of whiskey, and sat in the dark, the ice clinking against the glass like a metronome for my thoughts. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I wasn't even sure what I was. Just unsettled. Something had shifted between us. I didn't know if it was one moment or if that message had just finally forced me to see what was already there. Whatever it was, I knew this much: nothing felt normal anymore. And the worst part? Jenna seemed just fine. After the message, I tried to pretend like things were normal. Tried to keep waking up at 6, brewing the same coffee, taking the same drive to the job site, like routine could fix whatever was breaking under the surface. But pretending didn't change anything. It just made everything louder. The Caleb text played on a loop in my head, and the more I thought about it, the more I realized it wasn't the first red flag. Not even close. It was just the first one I couldn't ignore. Once I let myself believe something was wrong, the memories started to line up like puzzle pieces I'd been forcing into the wrong places for months, maybe longer. They weren't big, dramatic things. Just little inconsistencies that hadn't made sense at the time. But now, when I looked at them again, they pointed in one direction. Like the silent phone calls she used to take in the bathroom. Always with the door locked. I remember the first time it happened, I knocked, worried something was wrong. She came out a minute later, phone still in her hand, annoyed. "I was just peeing, Ethan," she said. God, I can't even have 5 minutes to myself? I believed her. Or maybe I didn't, but I let it go because it felt easier than making a thing out of it. Now, I'd give anything to go back and make it a thing. Or the lingerie. That stuck with me more than I wanted to admit. A couple months ago, I saw her folding laundry in the living room, and tucked between a stack of her leggings and tank tops was this brand new navy lace set I'd never seen before. It looked expensive, way nicer than anything we usually bought. I teased her about it. "Trying to impress me, huh?" She smiled and said, "Just felt like treating myself." Then she laughed and said, "Don't get your hopes up. I haven't worn it yet." But she had. I found the tag in the bathroom trash 2 days later. And she never wore it around me. I thought maybe I was just being sensitive and secure. But now it all felt different. Like it wasn't me imagining things, it was me waking up to them. Then there were her so-called runs. She'd started going for evening jogs sometime in late February. Said it helped her clear her head after work, unwind from being stuck at a desk all day. I supported it, of course. Told her I was proud of her for taking care of herself. But she never came back sweaty. I mean, not once. She'd walk in smelling like perfume and wine. I remember one night, she had a tiny smear of lipstick near the corner of her mouth, just barely there. I pointed it out jokingly. She got this stiff look, wiped it with the back of her hand, and said it must have smudged from my lip balm. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her so bad it hurt. But now I wasn't so sure. Then there was that night, months ago, maybe December, when she fell asleep on the couch after we watched some dumb rom-com she picked. Around 2 in the morning, I woke up to the sound of her muttering in her sleep. Not loud, just soft and garbled. At first I thought she was dreaming, but then I heard the name. Caleb. It wasn't loud. Just a breath of sound. But it cut straight through me. I remember saying, half asleep, "Who's Caleb?" She rolled over, groggy and confused, and said, "What are you talking about? You just said Caleb." "I didn't say anything," she mumbled. "Go back to sleep." I did. Stupidly. But that name had been there, even then. That damn name I didn't recognize, dropped in the dark like a breadcrumb I never followed. And then came the waiter. That memory came rushing back one night after work. We were at a restaurant uptown, the kind of place we didn't usually go unless it was a birthday or an anniversary. She had suggested it out of nowhere, said she'd heard great things from a friend at work. We walked in and the host immediately greeted her by name. "Nice to see you again, Jenna," he said. "Your usual table?" I remember looking at her, confused. "You've been here before?" She laughed awkwardly and said, "No, I think he's confusing me with someone else." But she didn't correct him. She just smiled politely and let him lead us to a table in the back. That whole dinner, I couldn't shake the weird feeling. Like I just walked into someone else's script. The worst part was that I had noticed all these things as they happened, and still, I let them slide. I told myself I was paranoid. That every marriage has phases. That maybe I was just tired, stressed, imagining things. I realized now I was gaslighting myself before she ever had to. After the text, everything changed. I started watching her without meaning to, her posture, her phone habits, the way she reacted to little questions. She wasn't just distracted. She was guarded. Like someone walking through a hallway with breakable glass on every side. She'd get defensive over nothing. If I asked how her day was, sometimes she'd snap, "Why are you interrogating me?" I'd blink, caught off guard. I was just asking. She never used to be like that. We used to talk about everything, work drama, stupid dreams, random stuff we saw online. Now, I felt like a stranger sitting across from someone playing the role of my wife. I tried to bring it up once. I didn't even mention Caleb. Just said, "Hey, you okay? You seem distant lately." She sighed and didn't look up from her phone. "I'm fine, Ethan. Stop making problems where there aren't any." That shut me up for a while. But the space between us kept growing. Not just physically, though there was that too. She barely touched me anymore. Even in bed, she'd roll over before I had the chance to say goodnight. If I tried to kiss her neck or pull her close, she'd mumble something about being tired and gently push my hand away. There's a kind of pain in rejection that's hard to explain. It's not sharp. It's dull. Repetitive. Like a tiny drip of water landing in the same spot on your chest over and over until it bruises. That's what it started to feel like, slow bruising. And I still didn't confront her. Not really. I didn't go digging through her phone. I didn't shout or accuse or storm out. Because I wasn't ready to be right. I think part of me still hoped it was all in my head. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. You know how people say your gut always knows? That instinct? I used to think it was nonsense. I thought trust meant ignoring doubt. But trust isn't blind. Trust has eyes. And mine had finally opened. I started journaling at night. Just scraps of paper, mostly dates, moments, things she said. Not because I needed evidence, but because I needed to see it. I needed to put it somewhere besides my brain. Otherwise, I was going to go crazy. Every scribble became a crack in the wall I'd built to protect my version of our marriage. By the end of the week, there were too many cracks to ignore. I sat alone in the garage one night, door half open, letting the cool night air drift in. My pickup was parked inside, and I just stared at the dashboard where her phone had sat that morning with Caleb's message glowing like a flare. That moment had changed everything. Not just what I believed about her, but what I believed about us. I still didn't know exactly what she was hiding, but I was finally done pretending there was nothing to find. Friday started like most others. Cold air, black coffee, boots by the back door. The difference was me. I wasn't in the mood to pretend anymore. Jenna was up before me, already dressed when I walked into the kitchen. Hair tied, makeup light, perfume lingering faintly in the air. She looked sharp, too sharp for someone claiming to be just running errands. "Big day?" I asked, trying not to sound suspicious. She hesitated for half a second. Just long enough for the lie to form. "Yeah. Taking my mom to a hair appointment. Might grab lunch with her after." I nodded slowly, letting the words settle. "Sounds nice." She smiled, too quickly. "It will be." She kissed me on the cheek like always, just a peck, mechanical. Then she was out the door. I waited 10 minutes before grabbing my keys. I didn't know what I was looking for exactly. Just knew I couldn't sit in that quiet house one more time, wondering. I needed to know. Needed it like oxygen. I drove with no real plan, just looping the main roads through Masonville, eyes peeled for her car. Part of me hoped I wouldn't find it, that maybe she really was with her mom. That maybe I was the one losing it. But I wasn't. I found her car on Willow and 7th, parked in front of a brick apartment complex. One of the newer ones, sleek balconies, faux stone facades, real estate ads that used words like upscale and urban chic. It was a far cry from where her mom lived. I pulled over across the street and K** led the engine. The minutes dragged. I don't know how long I sat there, maybe 10, maybe 20, before I saw movement in the window on the second floor. The curtain shifted. A silhouette moved behind the glass. Two shadows. One of them laughed. And something in me broke. I didn't storm in. Didn't bang on the door. I waited. At 4:23 p.m., the front door to the complex opened. Jenna stepped out. She was smiling, glowing even. Not tired, not run down from errands or family drama. Just light. A man followed. Tall, lean, probably mid-30s. He wore a slate gray sweater, sleeves pushed up. He was saying something that made her laugh. The sound echoed across the street, soft and effortless. Then he reached out and touched her hand. Just for a moment. But it was enough. She didn't pull away. I started the engine. I didn't even think. Just drove. I needed space. A bubble of silence big enough to scream inside. I drove around the block, around town, past places that used to feel normal. The bar where we had our first anniversary. The trail we used to walk on Sunday mornings. All of it felt warped now, tainted. Like someone had spray painted over my memories in bold, ugly red. I didn't go home right away. I stopped by the lake on the edge of town, led the engine again, and just sat in the quiet. Wind off the water rattled the cab. My fingers clenched and unclenched the steering wheel. I wasn't crying. I wasn't even angry yet. Just hollow. Like my body hadn't caught up to what my eyes had seen. When I finally walked into the house that evening, the sun had dipped low, casting long shadows across the hardwood floors. The living room was clean, candles flickering on the console like she was expecting company or pretending everything was still okay. She was in the kitchen, sipping wine. "Hey," she said. "You're home late?" I didn't answer. Just walked past her, dropped my keys on the counter. She kept talking, nervous chatter. "Dinner's almost ready. I made the pasta you like. And garlic bread even though it makes me smell like a vampire slayer." Still, I said nothing. She paused, wineglass halfway to her lips. "Ethan?" I looked up, straight into her eyes, and said calmly, "Where were you today?" The smile dropped from her face. "I told you. With my mom." "No, you weren't." Her eyes flickered barely a second, but I saw it. "The crack in the story. What are you talking about?" "I saw you, Jenna." My voice was steady. "I saw you at the apartment on 7th. I saw him." For a long moment, she just stood there, motionless. "Then, you followed me?" That was her first response. Not "I'm sorry." Not "let me explain." Not even denial. "You followed me?" she repeated, voice sharper now, accusatory. I took a deep breath. "No. I drove because I couldn't take sitting in this house another second without knowing what was going on. And I saw the truth. That's all." She set the wineglass down too hard. It clinked against the counter. "It's not what you think," she said quickly. "It's complicated." "No," I said. "It's not. You were there. He was there. You weren't running errands. That's not complicated, Jenna. That's cheating." Her eyes welled with tears instantly. "It wasn't supposed to be like this." "How was it supposed to be?" I asked, bitterness creeping in. "Was I just supposed to never find out?" She shook her head. "I didn't mean for it to happen. He was there when I felt invisible. And I held up a hand. Don't." She stopped talking. The tears were falling freely now. But I couldn't feel sorry for her. I wouldn't. She sat down at the table like her knees had given out. "I never wanted to hurt you." I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "But you did." She nodded. "I know." Silence fell over the room. A kind of silence that made the air feel thick, like it was hard to breathe in. "I didn't sleep with him," she whispered. I didn't respond. "I swear, Ethan. We talked. We kissed. Once. I wanted more. He didn't. He said I should talk to you first." That stung in a way I didn't expect. "So the guy you cheated with has more respect for me than you do?" She didn't answer. I stared at her for a long time. This woman I'd built a life with. Loved. Trusted. I didn't recognize her anymore. "I was going to tell you," she said. "When?" "I don't know. I was scared." I scoffed. "You weren't scared when you were holding his hand in public." That shut her up. I walked over to the kitchen counter, stared down at the pasta she'd made. The bread, the candles, the wine, it was all part of the same illusion. A stage play to make everything seem okay again. But the curtain had been pulled back. "I'm not yelling," I said. "Because I'm done." Her eyes widened. "Ethan, wait." "No," I said firmly. "I don't want excuses. I don't want promises. I don't want therapy or date nights or any of the things you'll suddenly remember now that you've been caught." She stood, desperate now. "Please. We can fix this." "We?" I asked. "There's no we anymore. You ended that. You just didn't say it out loud." She tried to reach for my hand, but I stepped back. The gesture made me sick. "I'm going to stay at Marcus's tonight," I said, grabbing my keys again. "Don't call me. Don't text. Figure out what you want. Or don't. I honestly don't care right now." I left before she could say another word. The night air hit my skin like a slap, cold and real. I walked to the truck, climbed in, and just sat there for a minute. I didn't cry. I didn't punch the steering wheel or scream into the empty cab. I just let the silence soak into me. Because the truth had finally walked into the room. And it didn't say a word. I didn't leave. I thought I would. I meant to. That night, after I walked out the front door, I drove straight to Marcus's place and crashed on his couch with nothing but a duffel bag and a bottle of cheap whiskey between us. He didn't ask many questions, just handed me a glass and let me sit in silence until I was ready to talk. When I finally did, I kept it short. She cheated. He nodded slowly, jaw tight. You okay? No, I said. But I will be. The next morning, I woke up with a knot in my back and a pit in my stomach. I looked at my phone, 3 texts from Jenna, none of which I opened. She hadn't called, though. That almost bothered me more. By noon, I was driving back home. Not because I forgave her. Not because I wanted to make it work. But because I didn't know what else to do. There's this weird space people don't talk about after you catch someone lying after the argument but before any big decision is made. It's like purgatory. You're not together, but you're not exactly apart either. You're just there, floating in the dead space of what used to be your life. When I walked back into the house, Jenna was sitting at the kitchen table. Her eyes were red, hair pulled back into a loose bun, the same sweater from yesterday still clinging to her shoulders. She looked up, startled. I didn't think you were coming back. I'm not here for you, I said, walking past her. She didn't respond. That night, I slept in the guest room. No suitcase, no long talk, no declarations of anything. Just silence. And that's how it stayed. In the days that followed, we moved around each other like ghosts in our own home. She still cooked sometimes. I didn't touch the food. I made my own coffee, did my own laundry, stayed out later than usual. When we did speak, it was brief and transactional. You need the car today? No. There's mail on the counter. Got it. She stopped trying to talk after a while. I think the silence scared her more than yelling would have. I didn't tell anyone at first. Not my parents. Not my sister. I wasn't ready to say it out loud yet. Because once you name something, it becomes real. I wasn't ready for real. Instead, I threw myself into work. Left the house early, stayed at job sites longer than I needed to. Hammering nails into wood was the only thing that made sense anymore. It had rules. Steps. Logic. You line up the frame, drive it in, and the structure holds. If only people were built the same way. A week after I found out, I closed our joint checking account. Transferred my direct deposit into a new one I opened under just my name. I didn't drain the old account, left just enough for bills and basics. I wasn't trying to punish her. I just didn't want her touching a cent I earned ever again. She noticed 2 days later. I tried to get groceries today, she said from the hallway. The card got declined. I didn't even look up. There's still money in the account. You'll be fine. You closed it. Yeah. Her voice cracked, just a little. Why? I turned to face her, arms crossed. Because I don't trust you. And because I don't owe you anything anymore. She didn't argue. Just turned and walked away. That night, I heard her crying in the bathroom. Door closed, muffled sobs behind cheap drywall. I laid on the guest bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to feel something. I used to rush to comfort her when she cried. Now I couldn't even bring myself to move. She started getting up earlier than usual, like she was trying to catch me in the kitchen before I could escape. She made small talk. Forced smiles. Wore makeup on random Tuesdays and spritzed perfume I hadn't smelled on her in months. But I didn't take the bait. She was trying to pretend she still had control, but she didn't. Not anymore. She asked me to sit down and talk once. Just once. I want to explain, she said softly, sitting across from me at the dining table. Please. I looked her straight in the eyes. No. Her voice trembled. Ethan, please. Don't do this. You did this, I said. Not me. She flinched, and for a moment I thought she might break. But she didn't cry. She just nodded like she'd been preparing for this version of me and didn't quite know how to deal with it. I went upstairs, locked the door behind me, and stayed there. The distance between us didn't look dramatic. We still lived under the same roof. Still slept in the same house. To anyone outside, maybe even our neighbors, nothing had changed. But everything had. I moved through the house like a guest. Took my dinner to the garage sometimes, sat on the old stool I used when working on the truck. I started reading again, books I hadn't touched since college. I played the guitar I used to love even though I was out of practice and every chord sounded rusty. She started watching me more closely, like she didn't trust the quiet. Like she was afraid of what came next. I think part of her believed that if I stayed, it meant I was still hers. But she didn't realize that I'd already left in every way that mattered. It's strange how a person can still occupy space in your life but not your heart. Like a piece of furniture you stop using but never throw out. You keep walking around it, adjusting your path without even thinking. I stopped asking where she was going. Stopped wondering who she was texting. I just stopped caring. I deleted old photos from my phone. The beach trip. The Christmas party. The stupid selfie we took in matching pajamas one New Year's Eve. All of it. One night, I took our wedding photo down from the wall in the hallway. It had hung there for 6 years. The frame left a perfect square of cleaner paint behind it like it had been shielding the wall from time. I put it in a drawer. Not because I wanted to save it, just because I didn't want to look at it anymore. She noticed the empty spot the next morning. "You took it down," she said quietly. "Yeah," I said without looking up. No follow-up questions. Just silence. We lived like that for weeks. Two strangers in a familiar space. The TV stayed off. The bed stayed cold. And the only thing we had in common anymore was the dog-eared memory of what used to be. One night, I came home late from a job. Walked into the kitchen to find her standing there in that same navy lace set I'd found weeks ago. The one she'd claimed she hadn't worn. She didn't say anything. Just stood there, biting her lip, arms at her sides. I looked at her, really looked, and felt nothing. "Don't," I said quietly. She blinked. "Ethan," I said, "don't." I walked past her, grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge, and left the room. I didn't slam the door. I didn't shout. I didn't even sigh, because the man who would have cared, he wasn't here anymore. And she knew it. Funny thing about grief, it doesn't always show up with tears. Sometimes it walks in wearing a gym bag and a pair of running shoes. That's how it started for me. Not as a resolution. Not as revenge. I just woke up one morning and couldn't stand the way I felt anymore. Sluggish. Heavy. Not just in my body, but in my mind. I didn't want to sit in that house one more minute watching the woman I used to love pretend we were okay. I didn't want to feel trapped anymore, so I moved. Literally. I started going to the local gym before sunrise. It wasn't anything fancy. Fluorescent lights, rubber mats, and a bunch of regulars who all looked like they had their own stories to escape. I didn't go with a plan. I didn't know what I was doing, really, but it felt good to sweat, to put my body through something real, something that hurt, but in a clean, honest way. That first week nearly led me. I couldn't finish a mile without gasping. My muscles burned in places I forgot existed. But I kept showing up. Every day. It became a ritual. Wake up, grab my keys, leave Jenna sleeping in the room down the hall, and head out before the sun came up. That's where I met Rachel. She was a trainer. Early 30s, probably. Fit but not in a showy way. More like the kind of strong that comes from being dependable for others, for herself. She had this quiet energy about her. Grounded. Real. First, it was just small stuff. "You using this bench?" "No, go ahead." "You ever try the rower?" "No, but it looks like hell." It wasn't flirty. Wasn't forced. Just two people sharing space in the early hours, breathing the same stale gym air and learning to exist again. One morning, I asked her how long she'd been doing this. "Training people?" she asked, wiping sweat from her forehead. "About 6 years. But lifting? Since I was 18. Saved my life, honestly. That stuck with me. Saved my life. I didn't ask what from. I didn't need to. By week 4, I was sleeping better. Eating better. Even standing different. I bought a new pair of jeans that actually fit and tossed out the baggy work shirts I used to hide in. Not because I wanted to impress anyone, but because I wanted to stop disappearing into my own life. At home, Jenna noticed. She didn't say anything right away, but I caught her watching me when she thought I wasn't looking. Her eyes would linger a little longer when I walked past. She'd ask casually, "Going to the gym again?" Like she was keeping tabs. Like she was trying to gauge if what I was doing had anything to do with her. Didn't. Not anymore. Her efforts started small. A hand on my shoulder when we passed in the hallway. A second coffee cup waiting on the counter in the morning, just like she used to do in the early years. She started wearing those soft t-shirts I liked, letting her hair down, lighting candles again at dinner even when we weren't eating together. She even started putting her phone screen side down, like I wouldn't notice, like that would make up for months, maybe years of deceit. But I wasn't interested in crumbs anymore. Jenna had her chance. She had years of chances, and all she ever did was pull back every time I reached out. Now I wasn't reaching. Rachel and I started talking more. After workouts, she'd linger a little longer at the front desk, asking about my job, my weekends. One day, I mentioned I used to play guitar. "No kidding?" she said, genuinely surprised. "Acoustic or electric?" "Both," I said. "Haven't picked one up in a while." "You should," she said. Music's like therapy without the bills. She smiled when she said it. I felt something shift inside me then, just a flicker. Not attraction, not yet. Just connection. A clean, honest thread tying me to someone who didn't know a damn thing about Jenna or the wreckage of our marriage. Someone who only knew me for who I was now. That night, I took my old acoustic out of the closet. Tuned it. Played until my fingers ached. It felt like breathing for the first time in months. Jenna heard, of course. She walked past the guest room, paused for a moment, then moved on. She didn't say anything. But the silence between us that night was thicker than usual, like she could feel me slipping further away. And I was. I was rebuilding myself in layers, sweat, repetition, music, silence. I didn't need to say it out loud. My actions spoke louder than anything I could have screamed in an argument. She tried again 2 weeks later. I was thinking maybe we could do dinner sometime. Just talk. I stared at her for a long moment. I'm not hungry, I said. She swallowed hard. It doesn't have to be now. Just, I miss you. I nodded once, slowly. I don't miss this. She didn't respond. The truth is, by then, I'd already stopped thinking of her as my wife. She was just a person I used to know really well who'd become a stranger I had to live beside for a while. Rachel stayed a part of my mornings. She never pushed, never pried. Just showed up, consistent and kind. Some days we barely exchanged more than a few words. Other days we'd talk about music or childhood stories or why people ruin the things that matter most. She asked me once if I was married. I hesitated. Not really, I said. Technically, yes, but not in the ways that count. She nodded. I get that. And she did. She didn't ask follow-up questions. Didn't press. Just offered that same grounded presence, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel judged. I didn't feel broken. I just felt seen. Eventually, I stopped checking Jenna's social media. Stopped caring where she was or who she texted when I wasn't around. My detachment wasn't cold. It was calm. Peaceful, even. She tried once more, wore that navy lace again, pretending like the last few months hadn't happened. I walked past her like she was furniture. Not to be cruel. Just because I had nothing left to give. One morning, Rachel and I sat outside the gym after a long session, sipping protein shakes. You look different, she said. Lighter. Feel different, I admitted. For the first time in a long time. She smiled. That's good. Keep going. And I did. Not because I was chasing someone else, but because I was finally chasing me.